So what is a lone wolf? A human lone wolf is an individual who acts independently and prefers to do things on their own, prefers solitude, expresses introversion, or works alone. A stereotypical lone wolf will be dark or serious in personality. They are often taciturn and distinguished by their reserved nature. An interesting approach. A happy social life is a common goal, but introverts of all types often become overwhelmed when they enter life's faster, louder, more energetic social currents. This can leave some of them socially disadvantaged or unfulfilled, wishing they could improve things. This drives many toward conscious social development. But what about introverts who simply say no thanks and go their own solitary way? We're not talking about the ones who've given up on achieving their social desires, but rather those who remain genuinely happy with relatively little social interaction. Much like a lone wolf in the wild, human lone wolves are born of a social species, yet are much more self-sufficient than most of their kind. These types value their independence in ways that can be difficult for other personality types to fully understand or accept. Lone wolves amid a herd mentality. Most of the world sees frequent, energetic social interaction as a normal and correct ideal. The term loner has become negatively charged. Social integration has major advantages and isn't a bad goal, but neither is it a universal fit. Many introverts' natural preferences make it a tough objective, and painful when forced upon them. A perfectly functional private lifestyle can turn into personal misgivings simply because others find fault with it. But the personality types within the lone wolf tend to respond a little differently than other introverts. Where some might feel deficient, ashamed, or helpless in the face of mainstream social expectations, they are better at maintaining their self-confidence and happiness. Despite societal pressure or criticism, they're more likely than other personality types to unapologetically enjoy a relatively solitary life. Anyone whose approach to life seems to contradict a popular ideal may find themselves regarded with confusion, pity, suspicion, or even resentment. The lone wolf personality is partly defined by introversion. The pack view of lone wolves. The typical characteristics of a lone wolf may result in some negative perceptions among other types who encounter them. This can happen subtly or unconsciously, and it's not always easy to recognize the ways we judge people. With that in mind, let's see 4 unfortunate ways that lone wolves are often perceived. 1. They're stuck up. When a lone wolf chooses to be separate from a group, some people, especially the ones in the group, may think it's due to disdain or a sense of superiority. The majority of all personality types apparently want to feel special, but the lone wolves technically trail the pack. Instead of seeing their individualism as an affront, consider that these types may be sincerely following their own path, just like anyone. Some of these individuals may simply want to be who they are and don't really care how it compares to others. While it might be true that they often stay apart from a group, they're not more likely than other types to think they're above it. 2. They're lazy. They never want to go out, hang out, or do stuff. The lone wolves have finite social energy and prioritize socializing less than other personality types. Their assertive identity makes them less vulnerable to peer pressure, so they're often more comfortable than turbulent introverts with declining invitations. This has nothing to do with being lazy, but it may seem this way to friends and family who want them to join in social fun. However, they may not have the same idea of fun as more social types. Their fun time might be working on a solo project, hardly lazy, but others who aren't around to witness their activity may mistakenly see them as apathetic. 3. They don't like me. To people who are more socially inclined, lone wolves' reserve and independence can come off as some kind of personal rejection. They may be shy, self-focused, private, or even low on social awareness, but these qualities do not equate to or amount to a habit of judging other people negatively. Their behavior is more likely akin to neutrality, a lack of active interest. Highly sociable people are naturally sensitive to, and quick to act on social opportunities. For them, it's an inherent drive, a positive bias. Lone wolves aren't as similarly attuned or inclined, but that isn't necessarily a negative bias. It's just a lack of positive bias, indifference. However, in many cases, people's assumptions, expectations, or insecurities may negatively color their perception of such cool reserve, and that can be a mistake. Anyone offended by lone wolves' initially neutral stance may miss out on getting to know a slow to warm, yet genuinely caring person. 4. They always want to be alone. It's true that, as a group, lone wolves generally prefer lower levels of social interaction than other types. We see a solid example of this in the way that each one evaluates the time they spend alone. The point is that a general or majority trend isn't an absolute rule for all individuals or circumstances. They are certainly more likely to favor privacy and solitude than other types, but most of them probably enjoy socializing, in some amount, in certain settings. While they're far from being closet extroverts, it's simplistic and inaccurate to see all lone wolves as isolationists. They just have specific, and often highly individual limits and preferences that must be observed for them to truly enjoy social interactions. Being a lone wolf versus being antisocial. One way to look at the critical distinction between being a lone wolf and being antisocial is that a lone wolf doesn't much need others, and an antisocial person doesn't much like others. Lone wolves are thus named not because they don't appreciate or value others or society itself, but because independence is their paramount value. How they express their unique traits usually has little to do with being antisocial and much more to do with being happy as they are, which can be quite impressive. They stand out from the antisocials in a few more notable ways. The lone wolves demonstrate the following trends. Their perspectives tend to diverge from the mainstream. For example, they have the lowest level of trust in political systems and are the least likely to believe that history is important. They tend to be rational thinkers. The lone wolves are more skeptical than the antisocials toward faith, magical thinking, and the supernatural. They tend to be calm and collected. The lone wolves are the most likely to view themselves as highly focused and the least likely to say they respond to situations emotionally. They're not as status or attention-seeking as most. They are less concerned than other personalities with how they look, for instance, and they're the least likely to think that their birthday is important. The lone wolves can be strong, free-minded, and level-headed. Willful, yet relaxed. Some might argue that these are very admirable qualities. The support, friendship, or loyalty of such an individual would be a boon. Is it possible that some lone wolves are antisocial? Perhaps, but not necessarily in the sense that they're hostile toward people or society in general. If anything, they stand as intriguing examples of how to live well with minimal dependence on others. Like a telescope or mountaintop, the most remote positions often reveal unique perspectives. The view of the lone wolf may offer valuable insight into being social. People in the more socially inclined groups can learn much from the lone wolves. For one thing, being social, however richly beneficial, can also bring profound stress, pressure, and risks. Learning when it's healthy to unabashedly say, "No thanks," and go our own way, as these types often do, is certainly a valuable skill to practice. There may be moments when imitating the ways of the lone wolf can refresh people's souls like nothing else. Emulating their serene solitude may be the best path to finding your true selves.